Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjalishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 17th verse of the 13th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam griheshu saktanam pramattanam tadihaya atyakramat avijñātah kala paramadustaraha. The meaning of this verse is, insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. So this is Suta Goswami narrating to the sages of Naimisharanya. The reality about the time being wasted by Dhritarashtra, even though he is very nicely taken care of by Yudhishthira, he is spending his last few days without utilizing it properly for eternal benefit. So that is going to be explained by Prabhupada. And that is the statement made by Suta Goswami. What is that? Insurmountable eternal time. Time is eternal. So, but it is continuously passing. And nobody can overcome the effect of time, the influence of time. Nobody can overcome in this material world. No materialist can overcome. So imperceptibly this time overtakes us, and particularly those who are too much attached to family affairs and engrossed in thought of the family, its well-being, and the children, and the bonding of affection between the different family members. Like that, time just passes away and human form of life is wasted without any eternal benefit. So that is going to be explained by Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada says, I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I am now successful. The poor beggar sannyasis depend on God, but they come to me for begging from me. Therefore, I am more than the Supreme Lord. The Prabhupada says, these are some of the thoughts which engross the insanely attached householder who's blind to the passing of eternal time. What Suta Goswami has stated, Srila Prabhupada explaining by going into a little more detail. What is the kind of thinking of people who are spiritually ignorant, having got the human form of life? They are always after material achievements, material happiness, material relationships, material prosperity, almost to the extent that they completely neglect spiritual life. So what is their thinking? They are thinking that actually they are happy. Because presently their health is good. Presently everything is going on okay. Materially everything is going on okay. They have enough money. They have nice children. Or they have enough to give their children inheritance. They've saved enough. And they consider them successful because they successfully managed to get a good job or a business, and they've earned enough money. So they also consider the spiritual, especially the sannyasis, were renounced, and therefore uh, uh, they don't have money with them, but they're renounced, and they depend upon Krishna. And in all humility, they go and beg from householders to get some piksha, some little food for their basic maintenance sustenance. So these householders were uh, foolish materialists, and they're very attached to family affairs. They think these sannyasis, they are just beggars. And they say they depend on God, but actually they're depending on a person like me. And if I give some small donation, then they can maintain themselves. Otherwise, not even that. So this is the total misunderstanding of these so-called successful people, material successful people. So Prabhupada explains, our duration of life is measured, and no one is able to enhance it even by 1 second against the scheduled time ordained by the Supreme Will. So we got a fixed duration of time in this body. Such valuable time, especially for the human being, should be spent very carefully, cautiously, because even a second passed imperceptibly cannot be replaced in exchange for thousands and millions of gold coins amassed by hard labor. Supposing I lose time, I cannot regain that lost time by any means. It is lost forever. So, why is Prabhupada telling this? Every second of human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to the problems of life, the fundamental problems of life, which we cannot solve except by spiritual method. If we don't make a solution when we have the opportunity for spiritual practice in the human form of life, then we simply are going to repeat the cycle of birth and death. And when repeating the cycle of birth and death, we may take birth in lower species. And in the lower species, if we take birth, there is no opportunity for somebody in the lower species, a soul in the lower species, to inquire about spiritual life, to take up the practice of spiritual life in lower life forms. It's not possible, generally. So, they are losing the valuable opportunity for eternal life full of bliss and knowledge by not practicing spiritual life. They spend away all their time in material pursuits. And time lost is lost forever. So, the ignorant people, spiritually ignorant people, they don't understand a fundamental fact about this material body. What is that? This material body is subject to birth, death, disease, old age. And these 4 fundamental problems in the material body are the cause of all sufferings of the living being. Otherwise, the living being himself is eternal and never born, never dies, never has to face old age or disease in this spiritual body, in this spiritual form. Never has to face. So foolish people forget this, that I have got a material body. It is simply the source of all miseries. But I am not meant for this material body. In my original position as a transcendentalist, I am entitled to eternal life full of bliss and knowledge, without any of the miseries, without birth or death or disease or old age or any of the miseries. And And even if some people take note of these problems, miseries which crop up from time to time, they do not know how to solve these miseries in such a way that we come out of the miseries entirely. That they do not know. They become engrossed in some temporary family affairs, not knowing that they are losing valuable time in the human form of life. So this is called illusion. This is called illusion. Moha. Such illusion cannot affect a person who is engaged in pure devotional service. So Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they were all engaged in service of Lord Krishna. So they had very little attraction for illusory happiness because they know what is the value of this illusory happiness. They know it's worthless. And they also know they have to prepare for eternal life by practicing devotional service. So they were doing their material duties. Side by side, they were always engaged in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, they were always attracted to spiritual perfection, achieving spiritual perfection at the end of life by practicing spiritual life. Now, in the human form, when we got an opportunity. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was always fixed in the service of Lord Mukunda or Krishna. And therefore he had no attraction even for such comforts of life as are available in the kingdom of heaven. What to speak of the happiness available on the earth planet. Because he knows all these are illusory, all these are temporary. So therefore, what is being said here, that those engrossed in material happiness, being attached to family life, they do not realize that insurmountable eternal time is overtaking them and they are losing valuable time, wasting it in some material pursuits. So they don't realize this doesn't apply to Yudhishthira Maharaj. It doesn't apply to the Pandavas. It doesn't apply to devotees. It applies to Dhritarashtra, who was actually out of attachment for his body, for his wife, for the comforts, material comforts that Yudhishthira was offering as a courtesy. He was lost in that and he was completely neglecting spiritual life. So this verse is applicable to Dhritarashtra. And Vidura had come exactly to shake up Dhritarashtra out of the ignorance and to instruct him in how he can save himself before death comes. So Srila Prabhupada says that one who is factually learned, he knows that material happiness is not important, it's not worthwhile. There is something called Brahma Sukha or absolute happiness, spiritual happiness. That Brahma Sukha or spiritual happiness is eternal. And it is always unconditionally experienced by those engaged in devotional service. So such devotees, they have no attraction for anything material, including material happiness or material comforts. So, Maharaj Yudhishthira actually was enlightened, was spiritually alert, but Dhritarashtra was not. So it was actually for the sake of Dhritarashtra that Vidura had come to enlighten Dhritarashtra, and that's why we will hear how Vidura strongly instructs Dhritarashtra to come out of this illusion. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.